Hello friends, I am Kanchan from Akulmek Technologies and you are welcome to our series, The Great Kings of India. As you know, we are discussing about Maurya dynasty and today we will be discussing about Chandragupta Maurya's administration. We have already done overview about Chandragupta Maurya. Now when we talk about Chandragupta Maurya, he is one of the greatest king. He was a great general, he was an empire builder, and he was a greatest administrator. To discuss more about his personality, his administration, I'm joined by eminent historian Professor Meeta Joshi, who is the head of the department of one of the prestigious college, St. Anne's College for Women in Hyderabad. So welcome to the show, Meeta ji. How are you doing? How's life in COVID era? Since we are discussing about a golden era of our history. So how's life today?
Namaskar, Kanchan. Life is good. COVID era is a bit disturbing, but then it is your perception how you take it. So life has to go on.
Yes, true. So let's discuss the golden era of India in the times of Chandragupta Maurya. So it is said that I've read that in Kautilya used three legs of administration or three legs of law. One is custom and I think it's missing out maybe custom and you have to tell me the four legs of
Okay. Yeah. Before we discuss that, let me give you a backdrop of India before Chandragupta Maurya established his empire. That time, the ancient India was, there were 16 Mahajanpads, and those 16 Mahajanpads, they were like separate provinces. The Greek influence was very much that time because 326 BC, Alexander has come, and when he left India, he left his satrapies. Satrapies, you can say governors, to take care of the Indo-Greek area which he has invaded. Now, one of the person was Seleucus Nicator I, who was the ruler of Babylonia also. So he entered into a matrimonial alliance with Chandragupta Maurya because he understood that if he takes or undergoes any type of dispute with him, then it won't be good for the Greeks.
Right.
Now these 16 Mahajanpads which were there, the first thing Chandragupta Maurya did was, he united those 16 Mahajanpads and created a centralized administration.
Okay.
A centralized administration. Then, because Chanakya was there, Chanakya was his mentor, he was his guide, he was his minister. So Chanakya started working very, very meticulously to consolidate the power and make kingdom free of insurgents.
Okay.
This was Chanakya's strategy. And then Chandragupta Maurya, he entered into a series of alliances with the kingdoms or the provinces and the kings. For example, there was a Himalayan king known as Parvataka, with whom Chandragupta Maurya entered into an alliance. Then now, if you see the administration of Chandragupta Maurya, it was very, very well organized. There was the king at the top, at the hierarchy. Then he had a council of ministers. Those ministers, for example, Nagarika, Purohit, Amatya, Sumant, then Mantri, different ministers to manage different aspects of administration like revenue, civil, justice. Everything was taken care of by Chandragupta Maurya.
Yeah, so
And
Kautilya used to stress on four things. First is dharma, then custom, and then I think royal decree. So all these are more powerful pillars of his administration, I guess.
Yes, see, Chanakya said that first of all, you should have loyal people who are in your council of ministers. Then he said the justice system, the judiciary, who were, taking care of the problems, solving the disputes,
Right.
that should be sound. That should be sound. Then you should have an efficient army to support the empire. Okay,
Right.
these three, and one was the civil administration.
Okay.
Because if the civil administration is good, the empire will function nicely automatically.
Right.
So this was these four pillars. Then, because army was very very crucial and is crucial for any kingdom or empire, so Chandragupta maintained a huge army with 6 lakh foot soldiers, 30,000 horses, and 9,000 war elephants.
Okay.
Those war elephants were groomed and trained for warfare, even the horses.
Okay.
And the discipline of army was such that whether there is war or no war, regular training happened. Regular training. They were trained. It was well equipped with the arms which were available that time: bows, arrows, and shields, and fireballs. Many things were used to wage the war. So that all Chandragupta Maurya's army possessed. And as I told you, the administration was very, very well organized. And see, why people were happy in Chandragupta Maurya's rule was that before Chandragupta Maurya, the Nanda dynasty was there, and before Nanda dynasty, Shishunag dynasty was there. So the Nanda dynasty's rule was very brutal.
Okay.
Dhanananda was known for his, brutality, and the taxes were enormous.
Okay.
So the common public was suffering a lot in
Okay.
his reign.
Oh.
So when Chandragupta Maurya came into power, and one more factor is there, that the humble background of Chandragupta Maurya, because as I told you yesterday, he is said to be a Shudra, because that time Varna system was very very prominent.
Right.
So being a Shudra, coming from a very very humble background, and rising to such a stature of a king,
Right.
but still after becoming a king also, understanding the problems of the common people. That was the greatness of Chandragupta Maurya. And see, the extent of empire was so huge. Almost he ruled the entire Indian subcontinent, apart from Kerala, Tamil Nadu, and Odisha. Otherwise, all the entire Indian subcontinent was under Mauryan Empire, and probably that was the biggest empire ever. If you see the boundaries of the empire, it extended up to our modern Pakistan, and more than that, Nepal was under Mauryan Empire. So the extent of the empire was huge. So managing such a huge empire, sitting at Magadha, sitting at Patliputra, it must have been a very, very Herculean task. But because he was supported by a very good team, the Council of Ministers, supported by Chanakya, supported by a network of spies, because those spies would give them the entire information about what is happening in nook and corner of the entire kingdom. So everything was so organized, very, very organized. And one more thing which I want to highlight about his administration is that he was a great road builder. Chandragupta Maurya was a great road builder. He improved the infrastructure. He developed the infrastructure. So, and see why these means of communication are important, because when you are doing trade and commerce, then if you have good roads, if you have a good network of roads, the navy was also very strong. The Chandragupta Maurya's navy, because all the important ports they had, so the trade and commerce happened from there. So not only one aspect, each and every aspect of administration was covered by him, each and every aspect.
Yeah, so actually, I always get impressed by one point is that Chandragupta Maurya, after Nanda dynasty, he enjoyed the absolute power. But in spite
Yes.
of that, he was not, he didn't acted like a pharaoh of Egypt or somebody like, even like Roman also. He was different. I think he's very benevolent. He understands, he's sharp, he knows what his subject is looking for, how can he help his subject. So he never attained a divinity position, but he remained a king in spite of having a absolute power. That is one. And second, I feel is that I have read somewhere that whenever somebody comes to his royal palace or royal place, all his walls and pillars used to covered with gold and silver. Lot of birds pictures used to be there, and whoever comes and visit that royal area, he's so impressed, and he feels so good about what he's watching at that point of time. And then again, I also read that there used to be apartment according to the hierarchy of people who are working in royal families. Like king had an apartment, then the prime minister will be having an apartment, then royal people who used to work in the palaces, according to their position, they were given a specific position, a specific place to live. So I think then when this all royalty is so organized, I think that also a message or a feeling of organization must be there in the general public also. So I think this also affects the general public to cooperate the king, I guess. What is your idea in this?
See, why Chandragupta Maurya united those 16 Mahajanpads? These 16 Mahajanpads had oligarchies, and Chandragupta Maurya was a monarch.
Right.
Okay, he understood that if he wants to rule for a longer period of time, then he should have a consolidated power, number one. Number two, a centralized administration.
Right.
So these two things were in his mind. And probably his model of administration and this integration of 16 Mahajanpads, what Chandragupta Maurya did, Julius Caesar did the same thing in the Roman Empire.
Right.
And then the Greek influence was there. Megasthenes was in his court for 4 years, 4 long years, as an ambassador. He was there as a Greek ambassador. So Megasthenes, in his book, which he authored, known as Indica, he has mentioned about the goodness of Chandragupta Maurya's administration, that the common people, the subjects, were very, very happy, and they lived up. And as I told you yesterday, economic prosperity was there in his empire.
Right.
Why economic prosperity comes? When your administration is sound,
Right.
all your the revenue part is taken care of. Because see, when Nanda rule was there, then taxes were very high. So Chandragupta Maurya kept this in his mind, that he is not there to torture his subjects. He is there to take care of his subjects. So the taxes were also implemented accordingly. So it's a very meticulous thing to do. But he did that. And Chanakya was there at the backdrop, managing everything. He took care of, this fact that the kingdom should be free of insurgents. So all these things made him a great king. All these aspects of his administration, his personality made him a great king. And then in later years of his life, it is said that he took up Jainism, and he one Jain monk, Bhadrabahu, he took him as his disciple. And it is said that he left his body. He died starving,
Okay.
because in Jaina tradition, this tradition is followed. So he starved himself to death
Oh.
in one of the caves at Chandragiri hills near Shravan Belgola in Karnataka. So again, this aspect of his personality, when he renounced his entire huge kingdom, it was a huge kingdom that time, and he gave it to Bindusara before he left. So if whenever you are powerful, Kanchan, when you achieve power, when you acquire power, you tend to develop some pride. You tend to develop some ego. But that time what happened, there was a bad famine in his empire.
Okay.
And then the Jain monk told him it was because of his, wrong deeds.
Okay.
Because he killed so many people in order to expand his kingdom. So that's why he wanted to, pacify that. That's why he took up to Jainism. That was the reason that he adopted Jainism. And then in the later years of his life, he lived and learned Jainism in a cave, and finally he starved himself to death. And for a king to do that is, you read the histories of all the kings, you will come to know no one has done it. Who will leave a huge kingdom and go just like that? Only if you were a Buddha, because Gautam Buddha was also born in a royal family, but his journey was totally different. But Chandragupta Maurya, coming from a humble background, becoming a king of such a vast empire, and then leaving everything just like that and adopting Buddhism.
I think that shows the greatness. That shows the greatness of a personality and a king, because it needs a lot of courage to leave.
I know, lot of courage. You have to kill your ego.
Yeah.
No. First of all, yes, you leaving the power is a big thing. Abandoning, what you have already.
Right.
So it's because see, human is greedy by nature. We human beings are greedy by nature. We crave for more.
Right.
We crave for more. But when he has everything, he had everything what a person can ask for, and you leave everything just like that and become a Jain monk.
Yes.
How great it is.
Yeah, it's very great. He ruled with greatness. He left the empire with greatness. That shows that he is one of the greatest king of Indian subcontinent. Of course, of the world, I guess. Because the way he has ruled, the way he has carried himself, and the way he looked after his subject, that makes him...
And a long rule, 24 years.
Right.
24 years he ruled. So it's a long time period.
So it's lovely talking to you, Professor Joshi. I would be discussing more about this particular era in terms of economic and the position of women in those times in our next episode. So till then, we'll just take a leave for now today. We'll meet tomorrow, maybe with other new subject on this era. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you.